Welcome to Friday's edition of COVID-19. The speed of the third spread here in Korea has been surreal, and authorities have noted a second day of infection numbers, that is, in the 500s. Now, the resurgence is evident in many parts of the globe, and for those in the northern hemisphere, like Korea, the cold weather appears to be aggravating matters. Let's start now with our Kwon Soa with the latest on the pandemic. Now, Soa, as I mentioned earlier, our daily tally continues to hover in the 500s.
Yes, Sunny, we have a slight decrease from yesterday, but as you just said, we have for the second straight day numbers above 500. The last time we saw that happen was around 9 months ago. Now, compared to Thursday, we have 28 less cases of domestic infections at 525 and a rise in imported cases standing at 44. And that raises the total here in the nation to 32,887. And with over 400 more people having been quarantined for the disease, this number has surpassed 5,000. Now, last Friday, we headed into the weekend with much concerns as we had numbers in the 300s. But now we're heading into the weekend with even more than 200 cases more than last week.
Now, so these heightened numbers, these scary numbers are definitely calling for heightened vigilance and perhaps even a further rise in social distancing measures.
Well, Sunny, health experts and authorities are discussing the matter right now on whether stronger containment measures are needed, with the Prime Minister having said earlier this morning that the resurgence in the country is entering full swing.
If the rising trend isn't put to a stop right now, experts are worried that new cases could reach above 1,000. Although the Seoul metropolitan region is under level 2 social distancing and the Honam region under level 1.5, it'll take some more time for the effects of those measures to kick in.
Tong added that we've been seeing a pattern in the past 2 weeks. We've been seeing rises following the weekend. So this coming weekend, how we spend it is really going to decide whether we're going to see another resurgence next week or not. Speaking of this weekend, it will be the first weekend for the metropolitan region to be under level 2 social distancing measures after they have come into effect earlier this week on Tuesday. And the numbers are really looking concerning here, with over 200 reported this Friday in the capital Seoul, 117 in Gyeonggi-do province, 25 in Incheon, and many other parts of the country with double-digit figures of daily increases. In fact, out of 17 major provinces and cities, 16 have been affected with new cases this Friday. And now let's also take a look at the global situation. We have 61.3 million total infections. And also what's worrisome these days is that we're seeing over 10,000 of daily fatalities. Let's take a closer look at the major outbreaks here. The U.S. at 13.2 million is actually seeing a decrease in daily infections this Friday. The same goes for France, which is why Russia has surpassed France in total amount of cases. Meanwhile, Germany has become the 12th nation in the world to surpass 1 million total infections. Let's take a closer look at the daily increases here. Again, Germany with over 21,500 new infections in the past 24 hours and 29,000 in Italy, also 25,000 new cases in Russia. And those are the figures I have for now. I'll see you back on Monday, and back to you, Sunny.
All right, so thank you. Have a safe weekend.
You too.
Right, the resurgence is taking place here in this part of the world as well. Officials here in the country and in China and even Japan are working around the clock to contain a fresh wave of infections. For more on this, I have our Kim Sung-hyun here in the studio. Welcome, Sung-hyun.
Good afternoon, Sunny.
Right, then let's begin here in Korea.
Right. I mean, compared to the situation over in Europe or over in the United States, you may think that things are not as bad here in the country. But the outbreak in Korea has taken a turn for the worse, especially with the third wave of the pandemic becoming more vicious with the temperatures falling. New daily cases have reached an 8-month high, even with health authorities striving to curb the new infections. Now, yesterday, the number of new cases in Korea surpassed 500 for the first time time since March due to sporadic cluster infections across the country. Health authorities are trying to curb the third wave of the outbreak before Sunung, Korea's nationwide college entrance exams, coming up on Thursday next week. However, cluster infections from private gatherings, public facilities, hospitals, and the military, they are threatening to undermine containment efforts. With the country's latest outbreak showing little signs of a let-up, health authorities are reviewing options to enforce tighter social distancing rules nationwide.
Right, Song-yeon. And the situations in neighboring China as well as Japan are also quite grim, I hear.
Yes, Sunny, starting off with China, following the world's first outbreak of COVID-19 that was in Wuhan late last year, it seemed that the country had largely brought the pandemic under control through travel restrictions and also lockdowns. But it is now battling a new wave of domestic outbreaks in different cities across the nation. Now, Chinese authorities are testing millions of people, imposing new lockdowns and shutting down schools after multiple locally transmitted cases were reported in key cities across the country last week. Now, recent flare-ups have also been seen in the cities of Shanghai and Tianjin. Hundreds of flights at one of China's busiest airports were canceled on Tuesday. Health officials tested thousands of staff at Pudong International Airport in Shanghai after a cluster of new cases in the city was linked to several cargo handlers. Now, in the meantime, briefly mentioning Japan, Tokyo alone reported over 400 new cases yesterday, and there is serious concern over a rise in the number of critically ill patients nationwide. Now, Sunny will be connecting live to a journalist in Japan later on in our program to learn more about the situation in Japan, so stay tuned for that.
Right, I will be doing that right after this segment, actually. Now, Song-yeon, meanwhile, researchers here back in the country have disclosed their findings on cases of COVID-19 reinfection. Tell us more.
Right, according to health experts just yesterday, a research team led by Professor Sung Moon-woo of Seoul National University's Department of Laboratory Medicine, they conducted a study on 6 patients who had retested positive for COVID-19 after recovering from the illness. Now, it was found that one of them had been reinfected with the coronavirus. What's notable here is that the patient had been reinfected with a different strain of the coronavirus. She's a woman in her 20s and lives in Seoul who retested positive for the virus in April this year after recovering from her first bout with COVID-19 earlier in March. She reportedly contracted the so-called V strain of the coronavirus initially, but was infected with the G strain the second time around. The research team explained that this is a case where reinfection had occurred in a patient who had been treated for a mild infection the first time around. This reinforces the notion that immunity could be short-lived in people who only suffer mild illnesses and doesn't provide enough protection if the patients in question are exposed to a different strain of the coronavirus.
No, that is quite worrying, Song-yeon. Moving on, the BBC has unveiled its list of the world's 100 most inspiring women for the year, and I believe among them is a familiar face.
Yes, this year in particular, the list includes many figures who played an important leadership role to promote change and also to make a difference amid these turbulent times, especially. Now, Jung Eun-kyung, the commissioner of the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, has made it onto this list, becoming one of BBC's 100 most influential women of the year. Now, BBC unveiled the list earlier this week and described Korea's top disease control official as a virus hunter, with the UK's public service broadcaster noting the transparency and the calm that Jung has brought to her daily briefings. In a letter of appreciation for the recognition, Jung gave credit to her fellow healthcare workers who thanked for devoting themselves. She thanked them for devoting themselves to respond to the pandemic, and she also vowed to spare no effort to help the world become a safer place by strengthening its capacity to fight against the disease.
All right, Song-yeon, as always, thank you for that. Take care and see you next week.
Thank you for having me.
Right, also on the pandemic front, now at the front lines of the battle, watching the scenes of suffering as well as solidarity and seeking to raise awareness about the severity of the situation are photo journalists across the globe. In this next corner, we turn to our Chun Song-cho, who is seeking to share with us their documentation of COVID-19. Hello, Song-cho.
Good afternoon, Sunny.
Now, Song-cho, I hear you are at a very meaningful exhibition.
Yes, I'm coming to you live from the Museum of Korea Contemporary History for a special exhibition that's taking place right now. So this exhibition offers a glimpse of how the world is coping with this unprecedented pandemic. So let's get inside without further ado. I will show you all the pictures that are on display here in this exhibition right now. So the exhibition is titled At the Scenes of the Pandemic. It features 120 photographs taken by photojournalists at the 47 news agencies around the world. And of course, this ongoing pandemic has posed a special challenge for photojournalists around the world to have to document a crisis that's been defined by social distancing. But I feel like this exhibition has successfully put together all of these incredible images of solitude and separation shared by photojournalists who are fighting this war against an invisible enemy on the front lines. So I want to show you one picture in particular right here. As you can see, you can see a healthcare worker looking rather exhausted, taking a rest outside a medical facility. So the photo was taken in the central South Korean city of Daegu, and apparently the photojournalist had to be put under 2-week self-quarantine after taking this picture because he came into close contact with frontline workers. And I mean, this photo is incredible. It just shows the amount of sacrifice and all of these efforts that are put together by frontline workers. And there you see photos of healthcare workers from all different kinds of nationalities. So that picture, as well as 5 other photos, have been contributed by South Korean news agency as well, Yonhap News Agency, which is the co-host of this exhibition. All of the pictures here have been created under 4 different themes: a beginning without an end, control versus freedom, world in standstill, contact-free is new norm, and cooperation, togetherness. And there's one more picture that I want to share with you. It tells a tragic story of a penniless migrant who is crying on the phone. So this photograph is the one I'm talking about. So the photojournalist apparently took this picture while this man was crying, sobbing uncontrollably on the phone by a bridge in Delhi, India. So the man had been there for 3 days as he couldn't get out of the city after lockdown measures. He wanted to go home thousands of kilometers away because his infant son had died. Yes, so these powerful images tell 1,000 words. They paint a bleak picture of the lives of people struggling to get by, but I feel like for some reason there's a message of hope and alliance in these pictures. So right now, I want to invite Ms. Kim Soo-jin to the show. She is the mastermind behind this exhibition. She's the one who put together this exhibition and came up with the idea as well. So here's Ms. Kim. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so can you explain to our viewers how this exhibition came about?
Our museum has jointly organized this exhibition with Yonhap News Agency. We would like to deliver a message so that we could share in difficulties of our fellow citizens, to say to them, never give up hope, and that we'll get through this crisis together. We present 120 photos selected from over 600 images sent by 47 news agencies from around the world. The photos in this exhibition demonstrate our struggles in this serious crisis to survive and uphold the dignity of humanity. If you want to see the powerful images, you can visit the online website, our online exhibition, our website.
All right, thank you so much for your answers.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so that was some powerful words from Ms. Kim Soo-jin. So with the virus raging, it's still a day-to-day struggle for many people, whether it be because they're sick themselves or they're taking care of their loved ones who are sick, or having to close down their businesses, or feeling an overwhelming sense of isolation and solitude. But I feel like these pictures in this exhibition is a reminder, a powerful reminder of the fact that we are still spiritually connected by love, and we can get through this crisis as long as we stick together. So the exhibition is available for free. Admission tickets are free, but for those who cannot visit the museum in person, then you can check out the website online as well. This has been Jeon Sung-cho reporting live from Seoul, and back to Sunny in the studio.
All right, Sung-cho, thank you very much for that coverage. Right, it's time now for the second installment in our 8-part special coverage of Korea's free economic zones. I have Peter Bint here in the studio. Welcome, Peter.
Hello, Sunny.
Right, so do tell us about the zone you're covering today.
Well, today it's GFEZ, another free economic zone. This time it's one that covers Yeosu, Gwangyang, and also Suncheon in Jeollanam-do, as well as Hadong County in Gyeongsang-nam-do. And all of these places are located along the South Sea of Korea, known as Namhae, and possess some beautiful landscapes. Yeosu is famous for its night views, and Suncheon is loved for its natural wetlands. So these are places where you can enjoy tourism and leisure based on the natural environment of the mountains and the sea.
Which is why the area is seeking to further boost its leisure and tourism industries, right, Peter?
Yeah, that's correct. So currently a marine tourism complex is being built in Gyeongdo Island in Yeosu, and there are plans to build a tourism complex in the Hwayang district. However, we should pay close attention to the expansion of the advanced materials industry that will let GFEZ diversify from its existing steel and chemical industries.
So essentially authorities there are looking to tap into new markets.
Yes, that's right. They're looking at these innovative growth measures, and for each free economic zone, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy in June announced plans, and you'll see that for GFEZ it plans to create a rechargeable battery materials industry cluster.
Right, now, Peter, for the sake of our viewers, tell us a bit about this rechargeable battery materials business.
Well, simply put, any rechargeable battery is one that can be reused and recharged, lessening waste. And the battery materials businesses, they produce the key materials that go into these rechargeable batteries. So let's see how GFEZ is transforming into a thriving place for the advanced material industry. GFEZ has become the center of the global steel and chemical industry thanks to the POSCO Gwangyang Steel Mill, the world's largest steel production facility, the Yeosu Petrochemical Industrial Complex, the largest of its kind in Korea, and Gwangyang Port, which is the linchpin of its logistics network.
대한민국 최대의 여수 국가산업단지 광양제철소가 입지하고 있어 원료 및 재료 공급이 원활하여 화학 및 철강 산업뿐만 아니라 다양한 연관 산업과 기업들이 활발히 입주하고 있습니다.
This has revitalized the local economy and created new jobs by attracting about 400 companies and total investments worth 21 trillion won.
광양망권의 강점인 철강, 화학, 국제물류에 기반해서 지속적인 혁신을 통한 글로벌 신산업 거점으로 발전하는 게 저희 비전입니다.
In the future, industries are looking to become more competitive, and additional jobs could be created by nurturing our fine chemical and metal parts industries with the same raw materials used in the chemical and steel industries.
Right, so Peter, what efforts are being made to turn this particular region into a hub of materials and parts?
Well, backed with the strong will of the administration and local governments, along with necessary policies, there is a strong support for R&D, in addition to having agencies in place to provide business support, such as the Cheonnam Technopark and Advanced Rubber Materials Support Centre. These efforts make the place business-friendly. In addition, the Sepung General Industrial Complex will be designated as a backbone logistics complex of Gwangyang Port to attract rechargeable battery firms, chemical materials businesses, and research labs.
And what is being done to appeal to these related firms?
In May, POSCO Chemical, they held a completion ceremony for a phase 2 cathode material plant, and it has an annual production capacity of 24,000 tons. And cathode material is a really important one for rechargeable batteries, which are vital in the renewable energy industry. In addition, POSCO Chemical will build a lithium plant by 2022, laying the foundation to establish itself as a key player in the battery material industry.
Right. Meanwhile, Peter, the flagship industry in Gwangyang Bay is its steel industry. Tell us a bit about this industry.
Yeah, so until now, corporate investments, they've been related to the steel industry in Gwangyang Bay, mainly focusing on the anchor companies such as POSCO, Hyundai Steel and POSCO Magnesium. The Yulchon Industrial Complex has more than 80 tenant companies related to the steel industry, and among them are big firms such as Hyundai Steel, POSCO Chemical and Samu Heavy Industries. They're playing a pivotal role in local industries. This year, a metal processing heat treatment support centre is set to be built in the Ixin Industrial Complex in Gwangyang City. And once the centre is completed, hopes are that it will attract investments from companies related to heat treatment, casting, welding and other industries beyond simple production. This can also revitalise the local economy and create jobs.
What strategy has allowed the region continued investments?
We heard why many companies have actually chosen GFES after talking to one of them, so let's take a look. HAM is a Chinese food company that produces baby formula. When you were looking to establish an overseas location in January 2016, why did you choose Korea among Singapore, Russia and other candidate countries?
Gwangyang 市有非常良好的光阳港，有非常良好的港口优势，而且在光阳港附近有非常优秀的自由贸易区。
HAM, which exports 100% of its products, judged that Gwangyang Port was the optimal location to handle its export shipments, which played a pivotal role in its investment decision.
我们觉得在光阳进行投资最大的优势就是当地的政府和职能部门对企业的帮助非常大。
In addition, HAM cited custom-tailored business support offered by GFES as a key driver that could help them grow their business, as close cooperation with relevant agencies is necessary to export goods.
Tell us a bit about the Gwangyang port that the Chinese company has highlighted.
Well, it's located on a main route between Asia, Europe and North America. So the GFES, which is based in Gwangyang Port, is equipped with a solid infrastructure that spans a port, airports, roads and railways. Gwangyang Port has grown into a global logistics port that handles more than 300 million tons of cargo every year, making it the largest in Korea in terms of import and export volume. 4 airports, including Muan International Airport and Yeosu Airport, are located an hour away from Gwangyang, and there are 5 expressways, 8 national roads and a KTX station nearby, giving GFES a standout advantage as a distribution centre.
It's strategically located, I suppose. What other factors should be considered by foreign firms seeking to invest?
Well, the first ones, I guess, are production costs like land and rent. And then it's probably infrastructure that is the next most important factor. Is there a stable electrical grid and also gas pipes? Third, you would have to see if international routes and logistics costs for the import and export of raw materials and products is convenient and economical. And finally, incentive policies such as tax reduction or subsidies would probably be considered.
I see. What then are the benefits to be gained by businesses seeking to set up shop there?
Well, companies that do invest in GFES, they receive some tax benefits and exemptions or some reduced national and local taxes. GFES provides tax reductions, cash grants and subsidies. And if the amount of the foreign investment is more than 30% of the total for the project, investment incentives such as cash grants and subsidies of up to 5 billion won per company are given. In addition, Sepung Industrial Complex in Gwangyang City was designated as a special area for supporting businesses by the Korean Ministry of SMEs and Startups. Sepung Industrial Complex, tasked with supporting these SMEs, has a special support area designation system that gives incentives such as tax benefits or helping to even find demand for industrial complexes with few tenant firms to help them attract companies and revitalize the complexes themselves. Corporate tax and income taxes are reduced by 50% for 5 years. And products produced by tenant SMEs can be purchased by local governments and public institutions through either private contracts or limited competitive bidding.
Right, Peter. Do share with us the zone's action plan to seek investments for this year, which I'm sure will be really tough amid the pandemic.
Yeah, with the deteriorating conditions for investments, they have a set plan. What they're going to do is have a dedicated team that will be formed to attract foreign companies. So improving the processes to attract the investment, it includes things like putting in place an information analysis by industry and expanding internal and external business networks. In addition, regarding the industrial complex, they plan to foster the creation of industrial complexes centered on the demand itself. And as the Sepung Industrial Complex was planned as a backbone complex linked to Gwangyang Port, they will come up with practical plans to attract exporting companies, especially foreign ones, in addition to the construction of roads near the complex itself, water and sewage systems, and also electrical grid work will be carried out as well.
I see. Peter, one final question before you go. What is the zone's vision going forward?
Well, they often point to Rotterdam in the European area because in the Netherlands and all across Europe actually, smart ports are sprouting up. And notably the port of Rotterdam has reshaped itself into a smart port. It's aiming to become completely automated and also digitize logistics. So GFES supports the Rotterdam model and as such, it is carrying out research and development in port logistics. The plan is to develop a port that can handle high-value vehicle transshipment and container logistics end-to-end.
I see. All right, Peter, thank you very much for the detailed coverage. See you next Wednesday.
See you next week.
Right, neighbouring Japan, as we mentioned earlier at the start of the programme, is tackling a daily caseload of some 2,000 infections in recent days, and further burdening the medical efforts there is the growing number of severely ill COVID-19 patients. For more on the situation in that country, I have Kosuke Takahashi, a journalist based in Kawasaki, live on the line. Hello, Kosuke.
Hello.
Now, Kosuke, what appears to be fueling the fresh outbreak in Japan?
Japanese medical experts are pointing out there are three main reasons. First, Japan is entering a winter and more people are confined indoors. And also, winter brings low temperatures and low humidity. These winter conditions are rapidly increasing the spread of the coronavirus recently. Second, Japanese government has been actively promoting the so-called Go to Travel campaign in order to stimulate regional economies for the past month. Many experts point out this travel campaign may have enhanced the spread of the coronavirus. The third, Japanese people have gradually become careless about the coronavirus, especially after the government lifted the state of emergency in May. Many people began to go out to eat since May. Sunny?
I see, Kosuke. Well, that complacency is a reality in many parts of the world. Now, I understand there's also been a surge in the number of severely ill patients. How is the medical infrastructure there coping with this burden?
A good question. Medical experts are now worrying about the healthcare collapse because infections are spreading rapidly nationwide. For example, yesterday, Tokyo confirmed 481 new cases of the infections, and the number of seriously ill patients rose to 60 from the 54 yesterday, day before yesterday. And Tokyo now has 150 beds for patients in severe conditions. 40% of these beds are already occupied. Tokyo Metropolitan Government plans to double the number of such beds, but many hospitals are already facing lack of manpower, and they don't have enough space and financial resources, so hospitals are struggling. In any case, we need to avoid breaking down the nation's general medical care system.
Kosuke, how are authorities working to contain this latest situation?
Japanese government intends to stimulate economic activity by promoting go-to travel still. Critics say Suga administration thinks about the nation's economy first before the infection prevention. But this week, medical experts urged the government to consider suspending trips under the travel campaign from hotspot areas where COVID-19 cases are rising. Hotspot area means in Japan now Sapporo and Osaka, where infections are spreading. The government dropped those areas from the travel campaign. And then besides Osaka and Hokkaido, Nagoya and Tokyo, infections are spreading rapidly.
Kosuke, given those circumstances, what are the prospects with regard to hosting the Summer Olympics next year?
Yes, Prime Minister Suga and Tokyo Governor Koike still say Japan can hold the Tokyo Olympics next summer. And then International Olympics Committee President Thomas Bach visited Tokyo earlier this month, and he shared Japan's determination to hold the Olympics. The government is trying to work out ideas on infection control measures. I personally think it's impossible to hold the Olympics unless the infections settle down. The tricky thing, the problem is Japanese media, such as Asahi newspaper, they are all Olympic media partner, so they cannot say negative things. So till there is a mood, we can hold the Olympics, Dani.
I see. Kosuke, I also hear that work is underway to seek the passage of a bill proposing penalties against those who refuse to get tested for COVID-19. Please tell us a bit about this.
Okay. There are some people who flatly refuse to take tests. This places additional heavy burden on hospital and medical workers. For this reason, Tokyo Metropolitan Assembly's largest group, so-called Tomi First, plan to submit a bill to impose penalties against those who refuse to take tests. But I'm not sure it is if this bill will be surely passed or not.
Right. Meanwhile, Kosuke, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga met with Beijing's top diplomat Wang Yi this past Wednesday, marking the first high-level exchange between the two countries since Mr. Suga took office. What was discussed?
They mainly talked about economic cooperation to improve bilateral relations, including the resumption of business travel between two nations by the end of this month. Suga called on Wang to lift its import restriction on food from Japan. And then Suga expressed concern about the situation in Hong Kong, human rights issues in Hong Kong. They also discussed Senkaku Island dispute in the East China Sea. I think Japan and China need to shelve this territorial dispute for future. Suga and Wang also confirms their cooperation for the success of the next year's Tokyo Olympics. They're still talking about Olympics.
I see. Did the bilateral talks then mention a possible visit to Japan by Chinese leader Xi Jinping?
Yes. It seems they don't discuss the visit by Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping originally scheduled to visit Japan in early April this year, but his trip was postponed due to the pandemic. And then Japanese government is very, very careful about this decision because the conservative lawmakers are against Xi Jinping's visit to Tokyo as a state guest. If he comes, the emperor has to welcome, right? But now China has a problem of the human rights issues in Hong Kong. So many conservative people are very critical about current China situation. So this is going to be a very big issue later this year. Sunny?
All right, Kosuke, thank you very much for making the time to join us live with your thoughts.
You are welcome.
국가 간 포용성 정진을 위해 총 1억 달러의 인도적 지원과 함께 방역 물품과 K-방역의 경험을 세계와 공유하고 있습니다.
Health authorities and workers across the globe are fighting a pandemic that has led to more than 61 million infections as of today. Now, leaders are calling for a stronger joint effort to curb the spread. I have Professor Kim Moon-gyu from the Yonsei University, and also he is the director of the Center for Global Development there. Welcome back, Professor Kim.
Thank you.
I also have Dr. Yu Byung-uk from Suncheon University Hospital. Good to see you again, Dr. Yu. Now, Dr. Yu, let's begin with your thoughts on the importance of a global collaboration in fighting COVID-19.
Well, we can guess. 100 years before is how long does it take from Hong Kong to London? At least 6 months to the ship. But now 12 hours, that's enough to take the flights. All the city, all the countries linked. So you know what? The fire over the river, we just watched it before, but this fire anytime come to our towns. So these days, a global town is all the links. It is not only happened in other countries in the neighborhoods. It's the next door happening COVID-19 is my door together. So that's why we have to fight against COVID-19 ensemble all together at the same time.
Right. Professor Kim, there have been reports of collapses in the medical infrastructure in quite a number of countries amid the pandemic. Do you suppose a stronger joint effort would serve to better address these unfortunate events?
Definitely. But first of all, I want to read the title of the article, which says, "See that Thanksgiving celebrations are restricted as much as possible so as to prevent another flare-up." So it sounds very familiar, but actually this is an article from 100 years ago when Spanish flu was outbroken. And now it's the season for Thanksgiving, so many people want to meet people, travel, and we're repeating the history right now.
It's a horrible sense of déjà vu there.
Yeah. So Mayo Clinic in the United States say that their ICU facility is already satisfied, and about half of them are COVID-19. And the general ward is also occupied by many COVID-19 patients. And if there is a COVID-19 patient, they stay in hospital about 2 or 3 times longer than ordinary patients. That means that's making the situations worse. And if you go to Europe, we see that Italy had a worst outbreak in February. But the southern part of Italy was spared. But they are not that lucky right now. So they are already facing the very desperate situation. And even they are trying to get help from organizations such as Emergency to build up new facilities. And I heard that inside Europe, they are sending some patients to another country if their ICUs are available. So it's not a problem restricted for Europe. It's the whole global problems getting worse as the weather is getting cold.
Right, and given that scenario, Dr. Yu, what role can Korea play in fostering perhaps a universal approach to addressing this pandemic?
Well, Korea is one of the unique countries having in 2015 in the MERS-COVID coronavirus event. After that, we have experienced how to overcome that kind of virus quickly and efficiently. So we have the efficient experience, and also we have a manual we have built up since last year. So we're ready to share about it. Also, Korean tech about the medicines, we are kind of leading countries over the world, so we are ready to share about it. So the experience, because we hit by the different type of COVID virus already, so which means we're ready to share with all of this, and then we are moved together.
Right. Professor Kim, your university has been actively working to share Korea's know-how strategies, that is, in dealing with COVID-19. And we've spoken about that endeavor quite a few times here on the show. How is that project going?
Well, basically, KOICA had a policy to do all the projects in a face-to-face basis, but because of this pandemic, we have to shift. And we went through a process to how we build up the control tower in our hospital. And we checked all the websites like WHO, Johns Hopkins, and CDC, European CDC. And we tried to find some materials suitable for developing countries. So finally, we made about 7 modules, and we make some pre-test surveys, post-test survey, and we also made another session that we can communicate with the doctors who are working at the developing countries.
I see. And Dr. Yu, you yourself, you visited the Congo Republic in Africa as part of a campaign to share Korea's COVID-19 know-how. Please tell us a bit about what you observed there.
Well, our teams, we are supported by KOICA, Korean Overseas International Agency, a branch of the MOFAT, and the Korean Embassy in the DR Congo, and the Suncheon Medical Center. We are organized, supported by the UNDP's project, in that we brought all the equipments and the techs and the engineer to have a capacity themselves in the DR Congo. DR Congo is kind of a country, so now it's developing, but still they need some help. We can share our experience and how they can stem themselves with the support. So the COVID-19 is not only the disease, kind of pandemics, because Ebola is more serious conditions, but I believe our experience to how to research and approach the viral disease, and then I believe African then they can stand themselves to overcome any kind of viral disease they can fight against them.
You also helped train, you held training sessions, that is, with medical workers there. What was the response?
Well, response was good because they feel very thirsty about it. Because I do also lesson and contact lens conference in the many Latin American countries like the Peru, Colombia, and other countries. But still, we feel thirsty because we need a human touch, because we are human beings. So I cannot speak French not very well, but je vais parler un peu. I will try. Our team is trying our best to transfer our knowledge, but we found that one thing: the language is the second. Human touch, human breathe together to fight against the COVID-19. That time we are having one team, so that is more important than other tech delivers, because we feel one, even though we have to have a different background of countries and the cultural and the languages, but we feel like the human being and respect and the humanities. So we can build up this network. We will continue now. I'm really appreciated all ambassador support from the African countries, especially the ambassador in DR Congo, in Korean Embassy.
Right. Meanwhile, Professor Kim, for South Korea, the COVID-19 situation up north is also of much interest as we share a peninsula. What is known about the COVID-19 situation in North Korea thus far?
It is very hard to say. There's no official COVID-19 case confirmed by North Korean government, but WHO has said that last month, more than 6,000 people had symptoms, and about more than 80 persons were quarantined. But we don't know exactly because it's a highly totalitarian country. But we have to cooperate, but where to start is something difficult. But when we go back to history, I mean, malaria was eradicated from South Korea, but it resurged in 1993 because there was a lot of flood and problems with North Korea. Then it came to South. So North Korea problem is not confined to North. I mean, we are the same people and the same land. So we need cooperation, definitely.
Yeah. Right, of course. As Dr. Yu said, your door is my door. And Dr. Yu, what are your thoughts on Korea's future role in the international arena with regard to COVID-19, given its relative success in containing the pandemic here?
Well, international cooperation we can call ODA, Official Development Assistance. Korea is one of the leading countries, but still we have to do more, share the part of the donations. But you know, mass of the money is not enough. Why? Because the people need a touch by the human beings. Also, we need to deliver our experience and the text for the hands by hands. So, under the COVID-19 situation, hand by hands is not preferred word, but hand by hands means not only the physical touch. Why? Because they need the help, not the money. So the Korean government, especially for KOICA and other many contributors donated agency, we are ready to move forward to help the people they ask us. So probably the Korea, we are ready to go, and we have as capacities already done. So especially the part of the medicines against the COVID-19, I have more opportunity to abroad to the various Latin American countries, especially for me in 2021.
Right, and very briefly speaking, Professor Kim, what are your thoughts on ensuring constructive collaboration on the medical front among countries worldwide?
Well, just as the professor mentioned, there are some limitations when we do all the projects on web-based. So we need to have some interactions face-to-face. So I hope that some quarantine restrictions for the people who have to travel because of this kind of ODA projects, they make some ease that we can do it more efficiently.
Right, I hope so too. Yes. All right, Professor Kim, thank you very much for your thoughts. And Dr. Yu, as always, thank you for being with us. Right, well, that is all the time we have for this Friday's edition. Now, do refrain from unnecessary ventures outdoors, as what we do this weekend looks to shape the course of next week's COVID-19 infection numbers and current containment efforts. Thank you for watching. Have a safe weekend.